Welcome back to Fiercely Unfiltered. I'm your host, Kelly Renee. And today I want to continue on kind of what I talked about last episode. I talked about childbirth. This episode, I want to talk about pregnancy. There's a lot of stress that goes into the 10 months of pregnancy. I talked about the stressful part of childbirth, but you have 10 months of stress till you get to that. And for me, pregnancy towards the end, it just wasn't for me. Held me up. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. So the doctor said I could safely have babies at 37 weeks. So both of my kids were born at exactly 37 weeks. I think I manifested it. For my first, I actually ran on the treadmill until my water broke. He did have his umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. I'm not sure if that had anything to do with it. I don't think it did, but I don't know if that was safe, but I did it. During pregnancy with my first, all the tests came back good. There wasn't really a lot of stress in it. It was just the first time being pregnant. So the whole thing is kind of new and stressful. And it still trips me out that you get to have sex and then this person forms inside of you and you created it. Just still, even though I've had 2 kids, still blows my mind that we're capable of doing that. So with my first child, it wasn't that big of a deal, the pregnancy. I made it through. I think one moment that sticks with me is I was in the military and all the pregnant people on the base would meet to do PT together at least once a week. And sometimes it was in a pool. And one time I showed up to the pool for PE with the pregnant people, and one of the girls had a bikini on, and she was probably like 8 months pregnant, and it looked like her skin was just ripped apart. She had the worst stretch marks I've ever seen, and I don't think I've ever seen stretch marks like that. My mom didn't get them. I don't know a lot of people at that time who had kids, so like it freaked me out. I was like, holy shit, this can do that to your body? Like, it was crazy. So it just, to find out some of the stuff that pregnancy can destroy your body for, I mean, it's a miracle and everyone does it and it's worth it, but it's just terrifying to see the effects that pregnancy does have on you. With my second child, when I went in for the 20-week ultrasound, I believe it is, where they do all the measurements of the bones, they do all that stuff to tell you if there's any problems. Well, I did the ultrasound, everything seemed fine. My husband at the time, their bio dad, was with me. The ultrasound lady left. So he went back to work and I stayed to get the paperwork. They called me in the office and they told me that his femur bones were measuring shorter than they should be, which means that he could have Down syndrome. And I was like, okay. And they're like, well, we can give you other tests. And it's like, well, if I do other tests and it comes back, what do we do from there? They're like, well, if it comes back that there's other problems, you can abort the baby. And I was already 20 weeks at the time. So for that to be a possibility if something came back was just crazy. I'm already 20 weeks in. I love this child already. I can't even imagine. So, I mean, it threw me off. I had to think about it for a little bit. I opted out of getting any more tests because we thought about it and we're like, so if the test comes back and says there's something wrong with him, are we going to abort the baby at 20 weeks? And neither of us were going to do that. So we just decided not to take the other test. So we just went ahead and had the baby. He did go to intensive care because of fluid in his lungs. It had nothing to do with Down syndrome. He didn't have Down syndrome. He's perfect now. He just turned 22. He's like 6'3". He's muscular. He's awesome. So to think that these tests they take and then they freak you out and tell you like you might want to abort your baby, there could be something wrong with it, or let's take all these other tests that aren't even always accurate. So some people are aborting their baby because of a test they get back. You know how many tests are false positives and stuff? That wasn't something I was willing to do. So we had him anyways. And he hasn't had any problems growing up. He had some speech problems and he moves around a lot in class. And I had to have like a squishy ball he sat on so he could pay attention. But mentally, he's fine. No Down syndrome or anything like that. So it's a very stressful time. And also when I was pregnant with my first child, my first sergeant at the time, his grandson died at 4 months from SIDS. So that was terrifying to know someone so close to you at 4 months old, their baby just didn't wake up. So I think when I had my first child, they said you're not supposed to sleep with your kid. I don't think I slept very much. I wanted to make sure he was breathing. There was a bassinet next to my bed he slept in, or on my chest so I could see him breathing. Like I said, parenthood for me was about keeping him alive and safe more than it was enjoyable. And I don't know why that is, but looking back, that is what it was. So pregnancy for me, and I tried in my second marriage to get pregnant again, and it's crazy the miscarriages I went through. I remember being at one of my sons, they were 16 at the time, their football games, and I had to go to the bathroom. I went in the bathroom and blood just started coming rushing out of me. And I'm at a high school away game, so it's someone else's high school, in the bathroom bleeding. So I shove toilet paper in my pants. I go to my car, I find a towel, and I sit in my car for 20 minutes, passing huge blood clots, like the size of a tennis ball. I almost thought I could be dying. It's like, how is this even possible? And I sat in the car, did all the blood clots in the towel, folded up the towel, put it in my trunk, and went back to the football game because that's just what I had to do. My kids were in the football game. There's nothing I could do about it. I didn't want to ruin the football game for them because of this. This was probably my 5th miscarriage by that time. So I've been through it before. But it's just crazy to look back when I was 26 and 27 or 25 and 26 having my first 2 kids. I didn't have as many worries because I didn't understand how fragile life was at the time. But now after trying to have kids in my second marriage and all the money we spent and the time we went through and the miscarriages I had, it's a miracle to have healthy children. It's a miracle to get through your pregnancy without complications. It's so complicated, everything. And for it all to work out perfect and have a healthy child, I thank God every day for my 2 healthy children. But I'm also sad. Well, I think God might have also I don't think I was meant to have more children in the world with what's going on and what's going on with me. So I think he did me a favor by not letting me carry all those babies to full term, because someday I'm going to be able to raise them in heaven without all this pain and stuff that I'm going through now. And I'll be able to enjoy it and be in the moment. And I'm excited for that. And I also wanted to talk about, I had 2 boys, and circumcision was something I was dealing with at the time. My husband, their bio dad, was not circumcised. And I don't think he really cared if they were circumcised too, because not being being circumcised makes you different. And I think every boy who's not circumcised, at least back in the day and when my kids were, when my husband was growing up, or their bio dad was growing up, or when they were in high school, you get made fun of. And it's sad. And so we were thinking about maybe circumcising them. But my oldest son went to intensive care, and they were going to do it after he got out. And once he got out, we were still like, oh, he was in intensive care for 10 days. Do we want to put him through any more pain? And so I was probably 75 not going to do it, 25 going to do it. And then right when we were trying to think about it, a phone call came in. And it was 2 new parents freaking out because something was wrong with their son's circumcision. And they thought it was infected. They had to do all this stuff, and it was just painful. And I was like, I'm not putting him through that. And that helped make my decision in that moment that he wasn't going to be circumcised. And of course, if you have one son that's not circumcised, you're not going to circumcise your other child. So they weren't circumcised, and neither was their bio dad. But it's crazy because I think at the time 2001, 2002, I think it was more common for people to be circumcised than not. So it was against the norm not to do it. But nowadays, I looked it up, and it's more 50-50. 50% get it done and 50 don't. But when my kid was in high school, probably 17, 16, I'm not exactly sure the year, but he came to me and he was like, why didn't you get me circumcised? And I told him the story. He's like, I was a baby. I wouldn't even have known. I want to get circumcised now. And I'm like, what? So it must have been in the time in school when he was undressing and kids saw him. I just found out the other day he had a nickname. I can't remember what they said it was, Jacob Foreskin or something, which is sad. Which makes me think, do parents talk about circumcision with their kids? Do they understand that some kids aren't circumcised and some are? My kids did, of course, because they were circumcised. So we had to explain to them the difference. But if kids are circumcised, Is that even a conversation parents have with your kids? You talk to your boys about that there are going to be some other kids when you're growing up that they look different than you because of a procedure that their parents decided when they were younger or when they were born. Because I feel like if we had those talks with our kids, then they'd be more aware of it. And maybe it wouldn't be something that they make fun of someone for. Because when my kid came to me and asked, like, I called insurance, I looked it up. I think it was less than $2,000 to get it done. But the crazy part is I watched Shameless. So Shameless actually had an episode. If you watch it, it was a 16-year-old kid. He was just starting to mess around with girls. His girlfriend didn't want to give him blowjobs because he wasn't circumcised. So he went to get circumcised so it wouldn't mess with that. And he got circumcised. And every morning he had morning wood and it ripped the stitches. It was just the most painful episode to watch. And so I said, Jacob, I need you to go watch this episode of Shameless and then come talk to me. We never had the conversation since. I think he realized at the time that it wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe if that girl wasn't willing to do anything with him because he wasn't circumcised, that wasn't the girl for him. To be honest with you, I can't even really tell the difference. Like, I guess you could tell the difference when they're soft, but when are you really messing around with someone then? So I don't think it's a big deal. I've been with both. I don't think there's a big difference in either. I think most people want their kids to be what they are. So that's normally what they choose. But I just also want to make awareness, like, if your kid is circumcised, I still think it's a conversation you should have, especially now that it's 50-50. Because I feel like that's not a common conversation. I've asked a couple of my friends who have boys, and they said, no, that's not something I've talked to them about. I feel like if we make people more aware, then our children don't have to go through some of the bullying for things that we decided for. That wasn't their choice. They look like that because their parents decided. And it's horrible when people make fun of people for something that they have nothing to do with, or they can't change, or they could change, but it would just be a very painful process to change at this time in their life. So for parents these days, circumcised, not, it's 50-50, so it's not that big of a deal. Just talk to your children about it and explain the difference. And for people who are pregnant now, like, I read all these articles about how so many people die during childbirth and stuff, and how it's unexplained, and how dads go in there to have a baby with their wife and they come out with just the baby. Like, I didn't get pregnant again when I wanted to, but now if I was a female in the childbearing age trying to have kids, for me, it'd be such a stressful situation. Because like I always say, I think worst case scenario. And now that I'm older and I've been through so much of life and I understand everything that can go wrong and how fragile making a child and carrying it and then having it, how complicated of a procedure that is and how many things can go wrong, it scares me. And I'm glad I'm past that. And I'll be dealing with it again when my kids decide to have families. And hopefully everything goes safe for them and they have all the kids they want to have. And I'm excited for that.